Hello and welcome today to today's webinar. Hey, thanks so much everyone for joining me. Today's webinar is going to be on IEC62443. Attention all software development experts. It looks like we have a full house today, so I really appreciate everyone taking the time out of their schedule. Let's go ahead and get this started. I'm Ted Stewart. I'm the Program Development and Compliance Manager for exida. Quick background about myself. I started my career with Lockheed Martin in missiles and fire control. There I was a test engineer and I learned all about Six Sigma, process improvement. I got my green belt with them. I then went over to Harris Corporation where I was working for a group called Wireless Product Groups. It's where I first learned all about the product lifecycle. I took 14 classified products every year and we basically brought them from the development phases all the way through to the end of life phase. These products were only good for a year because technology was changing so quickly. It's kind of where I first started learning about cybersecurity as well and started developing that type of background. I now work for exida as the Program Development and Compliance Manager. I get to manage the OEM certification division. I'm the deputy quality manager, and I'm also responsible for a lot of different standards people like to fall asleep to. And today's standard, though, will be on IEC62443. That's for cybersecurity. And then, of course, it's always fun to hear a little bit about the presenter. At least I think it kind of livens it up a little bit. But some hobbies, you know, when I'm not working around the clock because we are a global company. I love cycling. And also, my wife and I really enjoy home renovation projects. All right. A couple quick intro slides. We always have new people on these webinars, so quick background, and then we'll dive right into today's topic. We were founded in 1999, and on day one, we were a global company. Our corporate offices are here in Sellersville, PA. That's outside of Philadelphia, and then the other one is over in Germany. Since those two offices opened, we now have offices all around the world. We're growing really quickly, and we've been around for about 20 years. We have a bunch of different segments of our organization, whether it's consulting, engineering tools, product certification, training, reference materials, and professional certification. We'll actually be touching on 4 of these 6 areas. We'll talk about the product certification, training, reference materials, and personnel on today's webinar, and I'll share with you there. But just real briefly, because we do have new people, it's always fun to see how a company's doing. And it's actually really interesting for me because it's reassurance to know that, hey, what we're doing in the market, what our end users are looking for is truly showing value in the marketplace. We had this report. We found this report by ARC. It was done in 2015, and it was really interesting to see how in the short period of time we were able to gain 44% of the certified products out there on the market. And so, you know, we saw that chart there, and we said, well, that's all good, but what are the different agencies that take up the other 56%? Well, that we went out, this graph was remade, and we now got to find out, we got the results back, we were to find out and say, hey, look, now we can really see what that chart really consisted of. And you can see the different organizations that made up that pie chart. And, you know, this year, the results came back, and it looks like, you know, we gained 2% from 2015 to 2018. So now we're at 46%, and you can see the rest of the agencies for that market share. And this is within the logic solver. And I think that's really key because what we found out is that the logic solvers are what really kind of dictate the market with the people that they trust and they use. And so that's why we showed this chart here. So we're very happy about that. All right, so today's webinar, we're going to talk about the trends that link to cybersecurity. We'll look into how you can understand 62443 for software developers, whether it's for the product, the processes, or for themselves, the people, and then we'll answer some questions. So let's go ahead and dive right into the market trends that link to cybersecurity. Now, IBM, they came out with this quote. It's a very interesting quote. They basically said, look, the number of worldwide SCADA attacks increased 636% from 2012 to 2014. That's a pretty big increase. And then they said where there were actually 675,186 cyber incidences in January 2014. That's 1 month, mind you. 1 month, there are that many attacks. And then it says, as the number of cyber attacks grow, taking the necessary steps to protect remote access has never been more important. And it's kind of what we see as a trend. Remember, this is an older quote, right? This is from 2014. And it's very interesting to see how these things are developing. Now, what we're seeing, though, is that there were things that we are seeing more and more when we've been in this industry. And we find that, most cybersecurity incidences, they kind of fall into three different categories. First of all, control networks are full of what we would call soft targets. These are devices that are extremely vulnerable to disruption all through their network interfaces. The PCs in many plants, they'll run for weeks, months, or without any security updates, and some even operate without any antivirus tools. In addition, many of the controllers even in these networks were designed in an era when, I'll be completely honest with you, cybersecurity was not even a concern. And as a result, many of these devices really can be disrupted from, let's call it, malformed network traffic, or even by high volumes of correctly formed traffic. Okay, now second, many control networks have multiple pathways through which cybersecurity threats can enter the plant. Now, these pathways often bypass existing security measures in the plant, and some of them, they don't even appear on the network diagram. Quick example is, how about laptop computers? They're going to be carried in and out of the plant, or even USB keys that are moving from one PC to another. These can easily bring malware into that plant and rapidly spread from one system to another. Just think about it. And third, many networks are implemented as, let's call them, large flat networks with no isolation at all between any unrelated subsystems. What this means is that if a problem does occur in one part of the plant, it can actually spread very quickly to all the other unrelated subsystems and even to remote plant sites. So now that we know that there is a concern, right, what we're going to talk about now is the process, the products, and for people, if you're a software developer, what all kind of linking everything together, right? Because when we talk about cybersecurity certifications, those are the three key points, even when you look inside the standards, right? Because IEC 62443 will actually point back to the umbrella standard of IEC 61508, or if you're an end user, right, it would be IEC 61511. But so what we do see is in that standard there are requirements in there to provide competency, right? And so when we talk about your process certification, it's going to be the assessment on the engineering and test processes. We'll talk about the certification, which is if you have a safety PLC or a gateway, a DCS controller, and then we'll also talk about personnel certification. So understanding that there are cyber threats all around us, how do we ensure that that we're protected? Well, if you're a software developer and or anyone who can really help develop products and you're using certification, people use this as one of their key ways to provide that solution. Certification is effectively, it's done by a third party against a set of requirements. And when dealing with cybersecurity, that certification is done using what? That standard IEC 62443. Good news for you, though, if you've gone through certification for IEC 61508, or actually any similar functional safety standard for your industry, then the good news is that the process is extremely similar, and we can actually teach you how to incorporate cybersecurity into your current process or product. And I think that's very critical. Anytime that we don't have to recreate the wheel, we always call it two furs, right, or three furs. You can reuse your existing process and just start tying things in, saving you time and money and effort, really. Okay, now of course, I didn't say certifying a product to 62443 really doesn't say a whole lot until you actually understand the standard itself and a little more detail. So I wanted to put this chart up in front of you because if you're a person that helps develop a product, then you'll be focusing your time on the blue boxes at the bottom there, IEC 62443-4-1 and IEC 62443-4-2. All right, and just kind of do a quick example here because there are some integrators that I have on the line today. They're normally always are integrators. I think integrators are the people that are really looking for these types of services as well. But I added you in here as well. If you look, your boxes are going to be these blue ones, right? You're going to be looking at IEC 62443-2-4 and 3-3. Okay, look, what I always tell people is if you have any thoughts about protecting your process, your product, your system, or even yourself, we'll make it easy. I just look, give me a call, send me an email. I'll put my email address at the end of this webinar here, and I'll guide you down the correct path. And then I'll leave it up to you to make the decision. As long as I can get you the information and you're not following the wrong path down, then you can then make an educated decision to figure out what you want to do, or if there's things that you want to do yourself even. So now let's jump into the process and product certification and kind of talk about each one of these 3 steps. Right? We'll talk about the development process. We'll talk about the testing and the vulnerabilities, and then we'll also talk about the different test features of the standard. And depending on your security level, that security level is going to basically equate the minimum set of security features, capabilities, as well as the assurance for that software development process and security testing. And this is what we're going to start talking about. So, what is the development process? Now, keep in mind in the longer run, the objective is that we're going to want people to really design in their cybersecurity. This V model that you see in front of you, it's classic to the software design process. It's been around for decades. Now, you just have to add, let's just say, the security requirements into this model. Now, I always try and, like I said, don't recreate the wheel. It always saves time and money. But what you can do now is, look, take that same V model, and now let's throw in the cybersecurity requirements, right? What I always see when people ask me, 2 of the more critical items, or the ones that people are starting with, or things that they feel are the most valuable, are the security requirements and the security and coding guidelines. So keep in mind, if you're working for a company that has a development process already in place and you never thought to include security, you are not alone. And actually, you are with the masses. So really, the best advice I can give you is to prioritize which requirements are the most important for you and your team, or you can always ask us to see where you stand, right? We can always do a cyber assessment for you. And then set a plan with milestones on how you can achieve them in that order, because the last thing I need you to do is overwhelm yourself thinking, oh my goodness, I have to have all this stuff done tomorrow or even yesterday. What we try and tell people, look, just get started. Because what you're going to do is, if you can just get started, it's going to put you in a safer place tomorrow. You'll be less vulnerable as soon as you start putting some of these things in place, instead of just not doing anything. And 5 years from now, it flies by and you said, oh, I haven't even gotten started yet. I heard somebody else tell me, with cybersecurity, because how fast it's growing. Actually, I was talking to I guess I call him a safe hacker, a white hat in a sense, right? They said, look, when somebody's coming after you, they really aren't even trying to go after you. So when you say, hey, well, I have nothing that I need to get I don't care if they hack me. No, it's really, they're not trying to go after you. They're trying to get through you to get to somebody else. And that's usually what happens. So what happens is these attackers will go through the weakest link, get inside their system, and then when you do business with these other people, they're already inside, and then they can get inside to their main target area, right? That's what happened with Stuxnet, right? They didn't care about Siemens. They were using them to get to their main objective, and so that's the biggest thing. Somebody said, look, you just if you're getting chased by a bear, be the faster of the 2 people there, right? Just be a little safer than the guy next to you, so that you're not the weakest link that they go after. So, anyways, I hope that helps. Now, mind you, the device process of cybersecurity, it's been around for over a decade now, and Microsoft was actually the first ones to start identifying different key objectives. In that book that you see on your screen, they reduced the big objectives were what? To reduce the number of security vulnerabilities, reduce the severity of the remaining vulnerabilities. They then implement strong software engineering procedures, and then they use device procedures and static analysis tools to eliminate the specific well-known vulnerabilities. Makes sense. And this was over a decade ago that they started this. And so now with the new standard of 62443, we're able to do a much thorough job. The second part of certification, after we get past the process, is testing. So what is testing? Well, there's different kinds of testing. You have fuzz testing, penetration tested, mal, storm, etc. And there's a long list of tests that are run. Now, exida, we use special equipment. We run the tests. These tests can be performed using different platforms like Achilles, and currently there are over 100 different tests. And keep in mind, as we have collected and are collecting and constantly collecting more and more data, what we're noticing here at exida is that there are some tests that carry more weight than others. And testing may be able to become even weighted in importance as long as the critical tests are passed. Okay, we may be able to form, let's just call it a sample of tests that have not that, so that all these tests don't have to be performed in the future. And the key thing to take away is that testing is just one of the steps that may or may not be required for those that are trying to achieve certification. It all depends on what your objective is. And another key point to note is that when cybersecurity was in its infancy, was at the beginning phases, people thought this testing was all that they needed to do. It was later learned that large gaps were found in the process that is what led us to where we are today, right? Which now we include a process step. We include not only this testing step, but now we have an additional step that I'm about to talk about, which is cybersecurity features from IEC62443. So let's jump right into that. And so this third certification process is the features, right? Because like I said, people only thought the fuzz testing or the Achilles testing was the only thing they needed to do, and people were getting certificates on this, and that was great for the time period. But now we've realized there's really large gaps in people's processes and in different types of features that really need to be looked upon if you're looking for some type of certification. And here's the third part. It is the features. They're important in 62443 standard. And as you view this table in front of you, notice how you progress from SL1, which is security level 1 to SL4, and that number is increasing. Well, these features, as you go up the security levels, they build upon the previous numbers, and they're incremental. So stronger requirements are needed as you go from the SL1 to SL4. Something to a quick note is like, look, if you're looking at FR1, you have 10, right, for SL1. Then you go to SL2, and you have 16. Well, what that's saying is in SL2, you have 16 requirements. Now, of SL1, of those 10, really what it is you still have to meet all 10, but some of those requirements, you build upon them and you make them a little more strict. And the requirements get a little bit harder within. So not only is it 16 new requirements, some of those 10 are reused or built upon to make it a little bit harder. And that's you build upon each security level, just so you know that. And it's much like functional safety when you look at this, because when you look at functional safety, we say, look, there's 3 different hurdles that you have to pass, whether it's your random failures, your safe failures, there's your architecture, everything has to be in cybersecurity a security level X, and it can't be anything lesser for you to achieve that. So if you're going for security level 3, let's say, and you meet everything in SL2, you even have a few SL4s. Or excuse me, if you go for SL3, you have everything SL3, but you might have 1 or 2 in SL2, but you have a couple actually that are in SL4. You really will only meet your lowest point. So just because, let's just say, under use control of FR2 that you see on that table, maybe you're only a security level 2 there. Well, because of that one small feature requirement, fundamental requirement, your whole entire system will only be in SL2. So just wanted to touch on that, because what we're actually seeing companies do is they might say, okay, I'm an SL2, right? I'm almost so close to SL3. So we kind of encourage people to create a matrix of all the different areas, or if you have us do work for you, we'll create this for you. I will say, company X is security level 2. And then what we'll also do is we'll have a matrix of all the areas where you're actually security level 3 or 4. And it's almost bragging rights in a sense, so you can say how strong your certification really is. Say, yeah, sure, we're in SL2. However, 80% of our security level is actually in SL3. And it's really nice to share that with your end users so they can say, okay, well, look, data confidentiality, resource availability, these are the most critical items for us. And you can say, hey, by the way, even though we're in SL2, in those categories, we might be in SL4, And so it's really nice to have and share that. All right, so here are the different, here's a snapshot of the different schemes that are available through exida, through ISCI, which is the ISA Security Compliance Institute. And yeah, there's a lot of different choices, but the main thing to point out is that there's a scheme for you, no matter if you're a software developer, if you're an integrator even, there's a specific path for you to follow. It exists all dependent on what is your objective. And I think that's the critical piece is if you want to take anything from this slide and you know you need some type of security protection, email me, call me, because whether it's your device, your process, your system, or yourself, there's a scheme here that will truly help you. But like I said before, we just want to make sure you go down the right path. There's a lot of numbers, a lot of acronyms, and we can help clean that all up for you and take it from there. All right, so now let's talk about, we talked about the different way to get certified, right? There's like 3 different steps. Now let's talk into each individual one. So let's say you're somebody, you're a software developer, and you want to get your process certification done. Notice you only have to do step 1 of all those 3 steps that we just talked about for certification process, and it makes sense, right? You shouldn't have to do testing. You shouldn't have to look at those features because you're only looking to certify your process. And when you look to certify your process, that's actually in IEC62443-4-1. That's your standard. That's what you need to be looking at, and it makes sense. Because you're only looking for the process to be certified. The good news is if you do move on to getting a product certified or a device, you still can reuse that process certification. Now, if you go straight to a device certification, yes, you need to do post steps. You need to do the process, which is 4-1, and you also need to look at IEC62443-4-2 for your product. And I was saying is if you go straight to your device, the only thing different there besides having to do the process is sometimes, you know, we won't give you that piece of paper saying your process is certified because you want to get the device. So we'll give you the device certification. And that's really the only difference there. But just know that if you need to get a product certified, you'll go through 4-1 and 4-2 if you're a software developer. Obviously, if you're an integrator, that's something different, right? I showed you on that one chart when I had all the different standards up, and say a software integrator, or excuse me, system integrator, you'll be looking at IEC62443-2-3 and also 3-3. All right, and like I said, give me a call, email me, and I can make things a lot simpler for you. So why certify? Well, you know, there are many benefits for the end user and the suppliers. In the slide here in front of you, you're going to see that this is just a handful of things. However, the real big thing is now that there's certification, okay, there's now something that's structured, it's auditable, it's repeatable, and it's approached to evaluate the security of the IACS, or the Industrial Automation Control System, and the development practices of the manufacturer integrator against an established benchmark. And that's the key point. Sure, what you're really doing now is that certification kind of sets the bar. It says, okay, look, if I have this piece of paper, this certificate, I now have justification. If I can provide evidence that I've met all of these different things. If you don't have this type of certificate, it's really he said, she said type of stuff, right? You know, I said, yeah, of course I have cyber protection. Yeah, of course I've done functional safety. But if I was an end user, I'd be like, well, how? Show me. Provide with me evidence. And that's what is so critical about this. And plus, when we do help out and we do the certification, we actually include things in our certification that the end users are looking for, right? So we know what they're looking for. We have quarterly calls with our end users to say, okay, here's what certification is. Do you want to see anything else? How can this certification become even more useful? And they give us feedback. We add it into our process, and then we can move forward with that. So now that we've talked about the process certification, the product certification, now I want to talk about you. I want to talk about personnel certification for software, really for software developers. But if you're of any other field, I can also touch on that as well. But for today's sake, we're going to talk about software developers, because the first thing you want to say is, look, you got 2 different choices when you select on how you want to better yourself, or if you want to provide that competency. The first one we'll talk about is the certificate program. It's one where an individual will take a training course, and it's really just to gain that personal knowledge, or really to better him or herself. And since this training course will be mandatory, that individual will take a course and then they'll pass an exam based off of that training. The other choice is certification, and it does not require a training. And really the easiest thing to remember if you're trying to figure out, well, what's a certificate program, what's a certification? If there is a training required, that program is a certificate program. Okay, so let's talk about the certificate program, the CSP. All right, Cybersecurity Practitioner. If you're interested in the CSP program and you're a software developer, then the CS201 is the one you want to take. And as you can see, there are other trainings that are also eligible, because if you're a CSP, there's other things that you can take. If you're an integrator, you can say you take CS204. If you're an automation type cybersecurity expert, or an engineer, then you'll probably take the CS102. So I can easily help you if you tell me what your role is. I can tell you which is going to be applicable to you, and then you can go ahead and get your certificate program. Why would you do so? There's many advantages to becoming a CSP. One is you want to provide that proof of competency. Like I said, in the different standards, people are now requesting to show competency for cybersecurity. This is one of the easiest ways for you to do it. You go, you take the training course, you pass the exam at the end for that training, and boom, you got the certificate program. You can add exida CSP after your signature. It also helps differentiate yourself from your competitors. And also, if you're trying to be that mentor leader in the industry, it gets you ready for the certifications. And I wanted to show you quickly. I did actually, if I can quickly go back, even to show you my signature. Something I'm working towards is I'm working to become a CAC or a CACS. And you can see my description here. I'm an exida CSP. That's the first step I took. I'm working to take the cybersecurity exam, but I'm not ready yet. I'm still studying for that. But you know, it's a really great program, and it really does help get you to that next level. All right, now let's talk about step 2, the certification. This is where you're really becoming that. You're taking yourself from a competent student to really becoming that leader, mentor in the industry. Some people, they do claim to being an expert by taking numerous training classes, and then they just pass the exam. I don't know if it's a pet peeve of mine, but I really feel that someone is not an expert just simply because they're taking training courses and passing an exam based on training courses. It really should be based off of industry knowledge, experience in the field, and those industry standards that are out there. And there really should not be a training course mandatory for you to become an expert. And that's how we feel. And that's why we feel that the certification program is so critical to becoming an expert and really being able to use that term expert. There's 2 different types of certification programs. There's an expert level and there's a specialist level. Both are certifications, and the only difference there is really your years of experience in the field. And if you have more questions on that, I can direct you to the different websites to help you with what the requirements are. Of the different types, whether you want to be a CACE or a CACS, there's different types of exams that you can take based off of your knowledge. If you are an automation cybersecurity, you can be an integrator cybersecurity, and then there's also an exam, which would be the one you're taking. If you're a software developer, software development cybersecurity. An example is if you're an automation cybersecurity, you'd be really looking at 4-2 and 2-4 of the standard. Like I said, if you're software development, 4-1, 4-2. When I say these 4 dashes, I really mean IEC62443, 4-1, and then 4-2. And then, of course, integrators we talked about. You actually want to look at 4-1, but then also those 2 that we mentioned before would be 2-4 and 3-3. A lot of numbers, I know. Tell me your title, I'll tell you which one to take. It's that easy. When I did go to the CACE website, I took a snippet. All 3 specialties that I mentioned here on the website, it kind of gives a better description. So you can see here who this program was designed for, what's the standards, recommended courses, the recommended books, and that kind of touches in when you go to this website. Now you can see there www.exida.com. You now will be able to figure out all your different requirements. If you want to take a training, it's just recommended. Nothing is required, but there is information there to help you prepare for this type of exam. Advantages to become a CACE or CACS. Really, it's just you're taking everything to another level, right? You're increasing your value as an employee, differentiate yourself from your competitors and even coworkers. What we are seeing in the functional safety world is that this type of certification is becoming mandatory for even some work positions. I have yet to see it in cybersecurity. However, I think it's just around the corner, especially since cybersecurity is growing faster than functional safety ever was. So take a look at that and get yourself ahead of that curve. But then, of course, you can definitely put it inside your signature to let people know that you're a CAC or CACS, like you see there down at the bottom. There are reference materials. I believe, I don't know any other book out right now that's on 62443 except the one you see in front of you. And then there are also study guides, which very nice. I'm so excited that this happened. We had the first edition of the CACE program. It only included one specialty. Now the second edition includes all of the specialties. So whether you're taking the automation, the integration, or the software development cybersecurity exam, all three, even generic questions, are located in this book, and I love it. So it's really good to have. And that was it. That's what I wanted to talk about today. I hope you found it very useful and very sensitive to your time. I do have some questions that I want to get to, but by all means, if you haven't started following me, please follow me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active on there. I always try and help people out. I'm always putting links to new web papers and any other material that I can get my hands on. I try and share as much as I can. And then, of course, we have exida, Facebook, and LinkedIn for our company. Please follow those. That way you can just get the latest information. I think it's more and more people should be utilizing and trying to figure it out themselves. I wanted to mention this slide for the different trainings. We do have CS 201, whether you want to take it here, which I think is really cool. At the end of this month, we have that course. So if you're a software developer, definitely take that course here in Philadelphia. And then if you don't have the time, yes, I love in-person, face-to-face better, but we do have online training as well, and that will be happening December 10th through 14th for CS 201, and it will be a live instructor, which is nice. At least it's not just a recording. So you can see all the trainings we have. If you're interested in anything, please let us know. And now let me open it up for some questions here. Let me take a quick look and see what we have. One moment here. Okay. So the first question I have is, what are the prerequisites to sit the CAC exam? Great question. What I'm going to do is, just so everybody knows, everybody that's joining this webinar, I'm going to create a Q&A. So every question that was asked on both sessions of this topic, I'm going to combine all the questions, and I'm going to personally email everybody all the questions to these answers. And if you're listening to this when it's already recorded, send me an email to the email you see in front of you, and I'll send you a copy of this as well. So the requirements of CAC, once again, I'll just include a link. I'll share with you exactly how to get there, and that will give you all those requirements. But great question. Next question. SAE or ISO is underway creating a common automotive security spec. What are your plans to support this spec? 21443 road vehicle cybersecurity engineering. Yes, so that question, I think that was actually asked in both sessions, crazy enough. That is something we're looking into globally. And once the standard is released, we'll actually be able to incorporate it within our cybersecurity automotive scheme. But right now, because it's draft, we can't incorporate it until things get released. But that's great. We are working on it. Automotive cybersecurity is a huge industry, and that's something that automotive industry is really, really looking into. When can I take the CACS exam? You can take the exam anytime you want. Just reach out to our administrators, or you can email me and I can forward it to them. Yeah, anytime you want to take that exam, you can take it. Anytime we offer any type of training somewhere in the world, there's always usually where someone's proctoring an exam on the last day. So you can always jump in, even if you don't take any training classes, and take your exam. So you can absolutely do that. What kind of questions are on the exam? Multiple choice, short answer, question mark. Yeah, great question. The CACE exam is actually 100 questions, multiple choice. CACS is 60 questions, multiple choice. There's no short answer, and there's no case studies for those exams. Great question. All multiple choice, which I'm sure is going to make a lot of you guys happy. Next question. Yes. We will, anyone that passes the CACE or CACS, you will get a free polo shirt. That is correct. So it's funny that you asked that question. So what I say is, look, when you're filling out your application, be sure to find that area on there that they ask for your shirt size, because yes, you will be getting a shirt. Great question. If we want to take our CFSC or CFSP in automotive, is there a specialty? Yes, I'll include a link for the specialties, and of those specialties, there is an automotive CFSE or CFSP. Great question. Any other questions? That is all the questions I have today. Thanks everybody for today's webinar. I really appreciate it. I hope you found it useful. Once again, I'll send all this information out to you, the Q&A. If you have any questions, you see my email there. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Take care for now. Bye-bye.